Africa's share, 0.26%, the lowest share of any region in the world. The same can be said in terms of green loans. Africa's share is 1.9%. In terms of global issuances of sustainability bonds and sustainability-linked loans and bonds, Africa's share, 1%. So the shift to accelerating the development of green infrastructure will open up great opportunities for the launch of more green bonds and crowding institutional investors that are driven increasingly by environmental, social, and governance ESG criteria in their investment decisions. By focusing on the development of green infrastructure, Africa can increase the share of green bonds that it accounts for to roughly 2.5% globally. And that means we can crowd in at least $14 billion in green financing to boost Africa's green infrastructure assets. The Alliance for Green Infrastructure is being established to close the infrastructure financing gap, build sustainable and resilient infrastructure for Africa, mobilize African and global institutional investors, and several of you are here today, to invest in quality green infrastructure, to also speed up the scale that's needed for accelerating Africa's transition to net zero. The focus, therefore, is to develop low-carbon, climate-resilient infrastructure for Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, AGIA will mobilize the private sector capital at scale to support the greening of Africa's infrastructure. But let's look at the assets under management globally to see what we can do. Globally, you have $103 trillion of assets under management. If we're able to get just 0.03 to 0.04% of that, we will literally close all of Africa's infrastructure financing gap. AGIA will deploy its resources, partnerships, and instruments to green existing brown infrastructure in Africa. Let me give you a few examples. Converting heavy fuel and diesel plants to gas hybrid and power industries, greening non-power infrastructure, especially transport systems in Africa, using compressed natural gas, capturing flared gas all over the place and turning that into liquefied petroleum gas that we need for cooking, gas to power, and of course the manufacture of fertilizers. We see new opportunities for green asset recycling, as well as the development of green hydrogen and large-scale renewable projects such as the $20 billion Desert to Power initiative that the African Development Bank is leading to construct what will be the largest solar zone in the world in the Sahel and provide electricity for 250 million Africans via the power of the solar. We also envisage infrastructure that will support new green industries, especially the development of lithium-ion batteries in Africa to position Africa to benefit significantly from the electric car market that will be worth $354 billion by 2028. We're not going to do the same mistakes we always make. We find minerals and then we start exporting to everybody else, and they are at the top of the value chain, and we are stuck at the bottom of the value chain. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the secret to wealth of nations is very clear. Those who export raw materials are always poor, and will always be poor. Those who actually manufacture and add value to what they have are the richest, and Africa is tired, clearly, of being poor. And so as we continue to do that, we need to also recognize that we will not try to duplicate existing initiatives. We will complement, energize, and leverage all existing initiatives and coalesce around them together to forge a purposeful drive to deliver green infrastructure for Africa at scale. AGIA will help to prepare bankable green infrastructure projects, and for this we plan to raise $500 million in terms of project preparation and project development, And we will also use that to mobilize $10 billion in investments in green infrastructure. But let me say a few words about the role of government, because it's not just only about money. Governments have a critical role to play to promote green infrastructure investments in Africa. To create a conducive environment for private sector green infrastructure investments, governments will need to establish domestic green banks and national climate funds. These can be used to mobilize blended capital for low carbon, climate resilient development, address specific market needs, while also reducing reliance on external financing resources. To further support the development of green infrastructure, governments should consider the development of local carbon markets and remove fossil fuel subsidies, which can generate up to $44 billion additionally in revenues to be invested in green infrastructure. The Alliance for Green Infrastructure is well poised to make Africa greener. A greener Africa required to meet 1.5 degree scenario will generate 20 million more jobs for Africa by 2050. Together, let us green Africa. Together, let us build more climate resilient infrastructure for Africa. Africa's future depends on what we do now. The Alliance for Green Infrastructure will be definitely a game changer for Africa. So for everybody here, welcome on board and thank you very much.
What did I tell you? It's the leadership that we want for the Africa that we want. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank. I want another round of applause for this man who is my idol. Thank you so much. And when it comes to trailblazing leadership, I am very, very pleased to introduce to you the Chief Operating Officer of Africa 50, Chipidi Moramong. Chipidi.
Chalani, Gwambe, Jobo, Dumako, Ana, Isa. These could be names of any African village or city. These could be family names. Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, these are names of cyclones and thunderstorms that have ravaged our continent. These are names of cyclones and thunderstorms that have devastated infrastructure, limited infrastructure in Southern Africa, a region from which I'm from. Since 2010, Southern Africa has experienced, in the decade of 2010, Southern Africa experienced 13 cyclones and thunderstorms. Since 2020, Southern Africa has experienced 8 cyclones and thunderstorms. We're only 2 years into 2020. So what does that mean? The call for urgent and pragmatic action has never been clearer. The call to working together as a collective has never been louder. And addressing the need to build climate resilient and sustainable infrastructure. And this is already against a backdrop of an infrastructure deficit of approximately $170 billion a year and a financing deficit of $100 billion a year. President Adesina, Your Excellency Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, Your Excellencies here present, our partners from AGIA, welcome. My name is Tshipi Moremong and I'm a Chief Operating Officer of Africa 50, an infrastructure investment platform whose role is to develop bankable infrastructure and finance bankable infrastructure projects on the continent. President Adesina, I would like to thank you for your visionary leadership. AGIA was your vision. I would like to thank our partners who are here, who heeded the call to come together and act as a collective and address the need for green, sustainable, and climate resilient infrastructure on our continent. Excuse me. I hope you can all see, as already articulated by President Adesina, a unique and bold approach is needed. And we believe the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa is exactly that. Ladies and gentlemen, this COP is about implementation, specifically together for implementation. Through this partnership of like-minded institutions, we are looking to implement. We are looking to act. We're looking to create a vehicle which develops bankable, green, and climate resilient infrastructure on the continent, harnessing all of the diverse skills across this table in this room. What we're looking to do is create a vehicle that brings together what is a fragmented sector of project preparation facilities and project development facilities to work as a collective and to bridge the infrastructure gap on the continent, to work together to get our countries to deliver on their commitment to net zero. Through AGIA, we're looking to create an end-to-end upstream project development and project development vehicle that brings together the public sector and private sector. As President Adesina said earlier, the government also has a critical role to play. This is much like what we do at Africa 50, bringing together private sector players and our African key shareholders. What we need to do is engage with African countries to develop and finance bankable infrastructure and investment opportunities critically at speed and at scale. And just to iterate what Dr. Adesina said earlier, what is it that we're actually looking to do? We're looking to raise $500 million. I see many of you around this table with very deep pockets. I'm hoping you'll have heeded Dr. Adesina's call and dig deeply. Specifically, we're looking to raise $100 million for upstream project preparation. This is creating enabling environments for our governments, working with our state-owned institutions to create enabling environments. $400 million for project development. This is bringing projects from concept to bankability, something that is needed on this continent. And through that, leverage and catalyze $10 billion of additional financing from the private sector. The question you're probably asking yourself is, why is AGIA different? We've heard many of these initiatives before. But we do believe it is a different initiative because we're talking about all of us working together as partners. Firstly, as I said earlier, an end-to-end delivery mechanism. We're aligning as partners to establish what the eligible projects are and focus on speed of delivery. We're looking at projects only that have a 3 to 4 year time scale for execution. I heard earlier Mr. Mark Koloji talking about how long it takes for projects to be executed on this continent. We need to really shorten that time from project to bankability. We have here the strength of our partners who understand the continent. We need to leverage and unlock institutional capital. The $2 trillion of assets under management by institutional investors. How is it that we can unlock that? Long-term African capital, patient capital that can match the infrastructures that we're looking to deliver. Our approach is very simple. Working with our partners, we've developed 4 working groups. We're hoping many of you here will come and join us. Put up your hands and see how it is you can work with us. Upstream project preparation, project ratings, which look at eligibility criteria, project development, which looks at creating those bankable businesses, and then institutional investors, where we're looking to unlock both global and African institutional capital. The sectors that we're looking at, energy, we all understand the lack of access to energy. We're looking at also new types of energy, green hydrogen, which our hosts, Egypt, are developing and have done a great job, which in countries such as Namibia are focusing on and looking to deliver. We're looking at greening and smarting of our transportation and logistics systems. We're looking at ensuring that from a water and sanitation perspective, we've got green, sustainable, climate resilient infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, I see Bronwyn looking at me, so I need to hurry up. But really from us as Africa 50, as AU Commission, as ALDA NEPAD, as African Development Bank, as partners Rockefeller, EIB, EBRD, ASIF, we are looking to call all of you and heed the call to action by President Adesina and all of us as partners to come and join AGIA, so together we can actually implement. I think the time for talking is over. We need implementation. Thank you very much.
Chipidi, I would never, ever rush you off a stage, and definitely going to be following your leadership going forward, the Chief Operating Officer of Africa 50, Chipidi Moramong. Right. Before we go any further, I would just like to acknowledge His Excellency Raila Odinga, who has joined us here today. Thank you very much, sir. It's an honor to have you with us. And now into our discussion, I'd like to call up the following panelists, and then once we're all seated, we'll start in terms of the Q&A session. So if we could ask for the AU Commissioner for Infrastructure, Energy and Digitalization, Her Excellency, Dr. Amani Abu Zaid, to come and join me, please. The President of the Rockefeller Foundation, Dr. Rajiv Shah. Rajiv. The CEO of ITMA Capital and Chairman of the African Sovereign Investors Forum, Mr. Obaid Amrane. Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Mr. Ambrose Fayol. And CEO of Africa 50, Mr. Alain Ebobisse. So I think I'll stay up here where I've got control over a microphone. And Your Excellency, if we could start with the question that Chipidi asked earlier, what in your view makes AGIA different to all the other initiatives that we've seen?
Thank you very much for this question. Allow me at the outset to greet you all in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, Africa. This is the Africa COP. And we are all determined as Africans to make it work. This COP has chosen for itself the title implementation, and that is exactly what we are here for. It's not the promises, it's the actions. And what better than to do that with the alliances of the willing, the alliances of the ones who really mean business. And allow me also to greet my president, since I was at the African Development Bank before. His leadership, his insight, his vision has been leading the continent on so many fronts, and this is again one of his wonderful, wonderful initiatives. What makes AGIA different is two fundamental things. One, we are all coming together as Africans, all institutions, political, financial, public, private, to make it work. Not only that, we are coming together with our partners, multinational, IFIs, private funds. So it's a galvanizing the efforts of all Africa, but also of the whole world around a common goal. And our common goal is greening the continent. Infrastructure, as we all know, has been a serious handicap for this continent, but we want to go forward, lead the world, not just Africa, lead the world in green infrastructure. And this is what AGIA is all about.
Raj, I'm going to get you to come in here. Chapedi also referred to the time frame that we're operating here, which I think is critical in noting the difference of AGIA. 3 to 4 years in terms of project execution. Now that is scale and speed.
Yeah, I think scale and speed are absolutely critical. Akin speaks about it quite eloquently, and every one of your panelists here is very committed to moving quickly. But here's the reality. The reality is this is the Africa COP, it is the implementation COP, and most implementation has been exceedingly slow. In reality, if we're going to have the kind of blended public-private finance necessary to genuinely invest in green infrastructure in the continent, we need much more capacity from multilateral development banks. AGIA is one way the African Development Bank is putting itself forward and saying, hey, we will lead in providing financing to take the risk out for others. But we need it to be much, much bigger. We need much more resourcing for that. We're going to need it in a context where dozens of African countries are dealing with and will deal with in the next 18 months real debt sustainability constraints that prevent them from taking advantage of the bold leadership the African Development Bank is offering here. So we're going to need more fiscal space for African countries. And we're going to need philanthropic and private partners to come to the table and move very, very fast. Last year at the COP, Rockefeller, together with 20 other partners, announced the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. We announced $11.5 billion collectively to accelerate green infrastructure in emerging economies. This year we can announce we've already spent $340 million. We've already advanced projects that are drawing down $3 to $4 billion of that partnership capital. And I just visited with the president of Malawi, and we talked about taking Malawi's grid to 10 or 15%, having modern energy storage on that grid so it can take advantage of more new renewable energy. That's expensive. It's just flat out expensive right now. And so we're using philanthropic capital to cover that expense so the African Development Bank and the World Bank and others can pay for greatly expanded solar, and so that someday when the conditions allow, we can get more actual private finance, probably local currency first, to cover the gaps that exist. And that's the kind of speed we have to move at. We really can't wait. I know Akin has that urgency. He's had it for many, many years. But it's necessary now more than ever because Africa will miss its opportunity to participate in the green energy revolution. Batteries for small-scale grid systems in Africa cost 380% more than they do in the rest of the world. Solar panels cost 30% more than they do in the rest of the world. You need local resilient manufacturing. You need more aggregated procurement to take advantage of scale and procure things at better prices. And frankly, we just need much more blended public and private finance.
And I think on that note, much more blended public and private sector finance. Obaid, let me come to you and the African Sovereign Investors Forum.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, of course, everything is expensive in Africa, and almost all Africans are paying more for energy and electricity, which is a double penalty of them, and this is one of the issues we should handle. I think it's not expensive, but it is capitalistic, and AGIA today is here to bring some solution. First of all, let me first to thank the President Adesina for his endless effort to represent the Africa we all inspire to, the vibrant and promising one. I wanted also to thank VP Quaynor and my friend Alan for and their team for the preparation of this initiative, and I want to congratulate the AGIA partner for the progress that has been achieved so far. For the benefit of who don't know about ASIF, the African Sovereign Investment Forum is a platform led and chaired by Itmar Capital, the Moroccan Sovereign Investment Fund. ASIF regrouped 10 sovereign wealth funds from Africa: Angola, Djibouti, Egypt, Gabon, Ghana, Morocco, Nigeria, Rwanda, Senegal, and South Africa, and more prospective are looking to join us. ASIF was established with the view to cooperate to project identification and preparation. Given the nature of the mandates of sovereign wealth fund across Africa, sovereign wealth fund in general and in Africa in particular put sustainability at heart of their mandate. So by being focused on green infrastructure, AGIA framework is perfectly in line with ASIF's objective, and ASIF is pleased to be one of the founding partners of AGIA and to specially lead its institutional investor capital mobilization work stream.
Ambrose, if I can get you to add now from the European Investment Bank and your thoughts of AGIA.
The more, thank you very much, the more you get in line, the more it is difficult to be original. So the only thing you can do is to be short. I would just like to say two things. One, how pleased we are to European Investment Bank to join the Alliance and AGIA. Congratulations to, of course, to Akin and to the African Development Bank. Really, this is a great initiative. Congratulations to Alain. Really, very, very pleased to be here and to join. The second thing is, what we like particularly in this initiative is that it touches upon two things that are absolutely paramount if we want to develop infrastructure in green infrastructure in Africa. The first one is to boost project preparation, and the second one is to bring private capital. And of course, we will be able to bring the blended capital that is needed to make these projects successful. It is completely in line with our strategy, which is climate as a key priority for the Bank of the European Union, which is to have Africa as a big part of our strategy outside of the European Union, and which is to make sure that we can help bring infrastructure projects in Africa that are green. So very pleased to join the initiative, and congratulations for this.
Allah, we were on stage at the Africa Investment Forum in Abidjan just a week ago, and there you couldn't contain your excitement about the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa. I'm going to ask you the hard question. Measurability, sir. Tell me how we are going to measure the impact of AGIA.
Well, thank you, Browning. First of all, I'm still very excited about the initiative, which is a great vision from our chairman, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina. And in terms of your question, it's actually a very good question, because we need to be held accountable on the results. And what we are doing is to create an initiative that is result-oriented. So the results will be measured in terms of projects that we move forward from the concept to the financial close and to delivering infrastructure services. It is not about just, working on things. It's about achieving results. There are many initiatives that are doing this kind of work. I think the sense of urgency that we want to have within AGIA could be, in my opinion, a differentiator. We are bringing together in the same initiative the public sector and the private sector with a strong focus on delivery, project development, to deliver those bankable projects that investors will come in and finance. So that's what I wanted to say. In fact, I want to be short because a lot have been said before me.
And before we go any further, I'd also like to just acknowledge in our audience and to thank him for being here, the CEO of the Private Infrastructure Development Group, Mr. Philip Valahu. Philip, thank you very much, sir. Commissioner, we're coming back to you now. We go from measurability to also asking the other question in terms of, and it has been touched on by our speakers today, in terms of how the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa is going to work with other initiatives out there so that we don't just have another initiative that's going to be on its own.
Thank you very much for this question, because it's very flattering maybe of what's happening in Africa. When you go around the continent, you'll find a multitude and plethora of initiatives here and there. All of them come with lists, a list of this, a list of that. We want to end with these lists. We want to galvanize around priority projects that can have all our efforts combined, in order to deliver. So we already at the African Union, we have been preparing a series of projects that are regional, transcontinental. We have been doing that bottom up together with all the regional economic communities of Africa, together with the African Development Bank, with PIDA, NEPAD, and other actors to ensure that we all are around the same set of priority projects to present. And that is also the thinking that with AGIA, we would like to use the priorities that have already been identified, provided, of course, they follow the selection criteria, the elements that we specific to AGIA in order to move forward. So on the one hand, we evacuate the eternal lists that we have been having on the continent, but within this, urgency, standards, results type of finance that we want to bring forward. So again, AGIA, it's true, has its own criteria, but in the thinking is also how to make a very strict and thorough selection of priority projects that have already been identified on the continent in order to move forward with those.
So, Commissioner, I have a list here with me today, and I just thought I'd take this opportunity right now to tear up that list, to dispose of that list, and to look only at the priorities that we have to execute. Raj, let me come to you right now. I want to come back to measurability, because I want you all to put your voices in on what we can measure, we can manage. To you, sir.
Well, I think we have to have measurement that is, as we discussed, kind of project-specific and across this alliance. And the word alliance is the right thing. We have 27 megawatt run-of-river hydro in Sierra Leone. That's getting done. It's getting done together. 10,000 solar mini-grids in Nigeria. That can get done if we get it done together. Major plans to electrify farm communities in Ethiopia using distributed solar. That can provide irrigation to a large share of the farmers through the country. It can only move quickly if we move it together. And I mentioned the Malawi project, the South African commissioning of Komati to replace that with solar. All of these things, we all know the projects. They're on everybody's project list. It's a matter of having an alliance where we sit down together and hold ourselves accountable to, are we moving these projects through fast, and are we overcoming the constraints we otherwise might have? And that's what this alliance is all about. It's what the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet is all about. And frankly, we've all been doing this together for a long time. So this is a new way of working so that we can get results much faster.
Obaid, I want you to add there the level of excitement you perceive from the African Sovereign Investors Forum about projects that are de-risked, that are bankable, and that have a shorter time frame.
Yeah. So just to say that the sovereign wealth fund in Africa, compared to those of the other region, are more on a strategic development fund, which means that they seek to achieve both financial return and development impact. And I really believe that working together because the opportunity are there and need new skills in Africa. And I think that AGIA will bring this money and these funds to develop projects. And I'm pretty sure and convinced that we can green Africa not only in generation of electricity, but also helping Europe when it comes to North Africa to green its industry. And this is a great opportunity to Africa to create jobs for its young population. And if you can get some numbers, those are very huge when it comes to the necessity to invest almost 2 or 3 times the generation assets that are needed to handle the commitment regarding the 2015 carbon emissions. So those will be of a huge opportunities that should be captured by the young population of Africa, and the DFIs, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, the institutional investor should work together to capture those opportunities for the benefit of this population.
Ambrose, the European Investment Bank, is this the alliance you've been looking for in terms of deploying extensive capital into the African continent?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Africa is already almost half of what we do outside of the European Union. And clearly, the way that this initiative has a systematic, integrated approach of project preparation, development, and financing is something that makes me quite optimistic. But I agree completely with Alain and what Akin said. The thing that will matter is, are we able to deliver quickly on concrete projects? And actually, as was said at the meeting that you attended, also Akin, on adaptation, what is also important is that we bring things that can be replicable, that we are not going to, that replicate things or projects in various parts of Africa. That is also something that can scale up the needs, and the needs are so huge that we don't have time to waste.
Alain, what can African countries in this audience and in the broader online audience that we are broadcasting to do to tap into this alliance for green infrastructure in Africa? What are the projects that they can identify to get off the ground?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important. Project identification, we will have to work with the countries. But AGIA, one of the things that would also differentiate AGIA is that we will work countries and projects where we believe that there's the probability of achieving financial close is high. Because for us at AGIA, we're not going to try to do everything. We're going to try to be selective in those countries where we believe, again, we can deliver, because the accountability that we want to set for AGIA is very high. We want to make sure we're able to deliver. There are potentially other instruments that could be a bit more patient. AGIA will not be a patient initiative. AGIA will be an initiative with a sense of urgency. We'll have to design the incentive so that everybody who's joining AGIA has to be focused on delivery, and then collectively we can unlock those obstacles that we know. Some of those obstacles, but collectively we can do so in order to achieve our goals. So that's what I can say for that.
Commissioner, do you think that AGIA will be the catalyst to creating abundant renewable energy, to solving our energy problems with more than 600 million people still without access to energy in Africa?
Of course, and actually we are beyond proving. As we speak, this is what Africa is doing through the African Development Bank, together with our partners here present. Africa 50 has been, contributing to the largest solar power plant on earth here in the lands of Egypt. So, yes, we are beyond demonstrating our will. We have been doing that for a long time, and now we want to intensify it and accelerate it and move much, much faster and at scale.
Right, I think we're just going to go to the audience for questions now. Tsipidi, Are there any questions in the audience for our panelists? Obeid, you wanted to make a comment there?
No, just to what has been said by Alan concerning the scarcity of development money. We in ASIF, we are very keen to collaborate with that, and we are for sure will be completely invested in project identification and development. Those projects with the high probability to be developed and closed financially.
So let's go to the audience here. If you put up your hand, I will bring you a mic. So just wait 1 second. This is multitasking.
Hello, my name is Rami Gandour. I'm from Metito. We are a water and wastewater developer. And congratulations on launching this alliance. It's very exciting. I just wanted to understand, as a private sector company, you talked about the private sector getting involved. How can we involve, and what are the expectations of the private sector?
Thank you very much. How can the private sector get involved, and what are the expectations? Allah, that's for you. We'll bring you a mic right now, sir.
Hello, good morning. Thierry Deo from Meridian. So we are very active in Africa, as you may know already. So very glad that this alliance is coming to help and accelerate. So I think the big question is, do you have any targeted sort of deployment amounts that you want to put forward so we can work together to do this?
Let's answer those two as we move the mic. So Allah, talk to me about how the sector can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the private sector involved is a critical goal of AGIA. So what we're planning to do is to raise $500 million of project preparation and project development capital. What was discussed is that 1/3 of it will be allocated to regional developers, which are private sector entities, 1/3 of it to global developers that we believe are important to help us achieve target net zero. So that amount of money will be supporting private developers, and then 1/3 of the funds also for Africa 50 scale up. So we are thinking about it, but we also want the private sector to come in and join the alliance to help us co-create something that will actually be implemented with private sector principles. Even if the money is provided by foundations, DFIs, we want to have a governance, the processes that are private sector led, because that's how we achieve speed. So we're welcoming private sector participants to join us. And for Thierry at Meridian, I always responded to your question to some extent, because the target is to raise $500 million for project development and project preparation that will leverage other resources to achieve $10 billion of capital that will be deployed. So that's the answer.
Right, so we had a whole show of hands up here, and then in the middle there, if we can, Dovi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My name is Mustafa Sherman. I'm from Liberia in Africa. And my question is that I want to know Algeria, where the Pacific area, because in Liberia, our energy sector is one of the key things my country faces with in Liberia. More especially is focused on women and children. More girls cannot study in Liberia because of energy sector. So why Algeria trying to do until this energy problem in Africa? Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to just pass to some of my women colleagues in the audience. Thank you very much. There we go. We're talking about an equitable forum here. So, one to the lady in the brown. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that a lady is speaking, because I just saw gentlemen today. So thank you very much, Commissioner. I know that you helped me. I'm Romy. I'm heading the sustainability for private sector in Madagascar. And I'm very happy to see this initiative. It's a really strong one. And my question is very simple. How do we, from Madagascar standpoint, we have projects that can definitely be part of the game, but how do we get on board, you know, from Madagascar private sector? This is an emergency initiative. We are fed up slow initiatives in Africa, especially in Madagascar. So we want to seize the opportunity of the accelerator. And how do we do that? Thank you very much.
Right, if we could go to the lady in the back there with the brown jacket. Thank you very much. Allah, do you want to, well, is there anybody else who'd like to take the mic at this stage?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is really a very good initiative, and we are looking forward to it. My name is Asha from Uganda, and I want to concern, as we are talking about a blend of public and private infrastructure development, we also need to factor in the issue of standardization, especially the issue of quality. I've seen in my country there are a lot of infrastructure that come up in the name of green infrastructure, but they don't stand the test of time. How is AGIA going to handle this? And closely related, I have not had any proportion that is being planned for infrastructure, operation, and maintenance. Because even if it is green, it may not stand a test of time if we have not factored in infrastructure, operation, and maintenance. Thank you. Asha from Uganda.
Thank you so much. And I just want to take a moment there to say Madagascar, Uganda, Liberia, all represented in the room. Commissioner.
Thank you. Very quickly, I'm going to put take off my political hat and put my technical hat. The projects, usually they are strict selection criteria. You address your request to Africa 50. They go through the elements that to make sure that it is conformed to the criteria that we have put. Any viable project is a good project, and we're looking for the ones that we can move faster. So that's a very short answer. Now for Uganda, that you have two very important matters: standards, quality, and of course here you are dealing with the top organizations, not only in Africa but in the world. So quality is very much part of each and every project we have been implemented. And two, and that's a very good one, is operation and maintenance. That's why there is always in these projects we factor in sustainability of the project itself to make sure that the benefits continue beyond just the construction or the implementation. And the same thing goes to Liberia regarding the massive projects across the continent now for energy, whether at the national side or the regional transcontinental side. We can have this discussion maybe after the session. Thank you.
Well, I see we are losing our panelists fast and furiously as they move to different sessions. Allah, I know you want to add there before we go to our closing speaker. So a word from you there, sir.
No, not at all. I just wanted to say to the lady from Madagascar that as soon as the initiative achieves first financial close, you'll be able to submit your application, and then we'll treat it with the speed of a private sector fund. If we like the project, we're going to call you so much that you will tell us to stop calling you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much to my esteemed panelists. Now is my pleasure. I think let's stay on stage right now. It is my pleasure to ask the Right Honourable Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to come and do closing remarks on the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, sir.
Thank you very much. And this is an enormously important initiative. And I want to pay tribute to President Adesina and the African Development Bank for their leadership on this question. And really, I got a report of what the panel was saying, so I'm up to speed with what you were talking about. And I just make 2 points. The first is that we're only going to solve this problem by practical plans and by implementation of those plans. And one of the great things about Desert to Power, for example, is that it's a set of practical projects that are realizable if we have the right focus on implementation. That's the first thing, and it's important because, you know, what often happens at these summits is a combination of strong words and weak actions. And really what we need is the strong actions, but they are always based on practical plans of implementation. The second thing is that, you know, for the governments, they have the ambition to grow in a sustainable way, but they've got to grow, they've got to develop. And there is no way that anything can impede that African development. So the question is not just how we manage to get the finance and the help and the investment into Africa, but also how the governments themselves prepare for the absorption of that potential finance. And that's the other side of the equation. And it's why the finance for projects, for project preparation is so important, because my institute works in around about 20 different countries in Africa. Constantly we come across great ideas, but they're not in investable form, or the government isn't configured in such a way that it allows those projects to move forward. It's always a partnership. It's a partnership between those who can provide the investment and those who can utilize that investment for the betterment of their people. And that's where the role of the African Development Bank and others is so important. They play a galvanizing role. They make sure that the capital that comes in attracts other capital. They help governments with the preparation of the project, and that's what makes the whole thing work. Finally, I am actually optimistic that there is huge appetite within Africa. Didn't create the problem, but it does want in development not to create another problem. I don't think the problem is a lack of will or appetite on the part of African people or African governments. It's a question of organization. It's a question of getting the right elements in place that make the vision we want to achieve a reality. And if I learn any one lesson in government, is that the hardest thing is to get anything done. You can write the reports, you can have the great visions, but ultimately it's about implementation. And that is what this initiative is about, and that's why I applaud it. Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Blair, if we could just have a photo opportunity now with everybody on stage. And I could also call, please, Solomon Quainer, Vice President, the Secretary General of the African Development Bank. If I could get all the African Development Bank members, Amadou Holt, please, sir, come up. If I can get all of you up here onto the stage. And, of course, not forgetting, sir, the CEO of Private Infrastructure Development Group, Mr. Philip Vahalu, if you could come up, sir.